Have you ever felt impatient on a 2-hour flight? Or frustrated by a traffic jam that adds 30 minutes to your commute? It's easy to forget that for most of human history, travel was a monumental undertaking. A journey not of hours, but of weeks, months, or even years. Today, we're going to step back in time, to an age when the world felt infinitely larger, and to simply move from one place to another was an epic adventure in itself. This is the story of travel in the ancient world. Imagine you are a Roman merchant in the 2nd century AD, preparing to transport goods from Rome to Alexandria in Egypt. This isn't a trip you decide on a whim. It requires months of planning. First, you must wait for the sailing season. The Mediterranean, which the Romans called Mare Nostrum or RC, was treacherous and largely unnavigable during the winter months, from roughly November to March. The risk of storms and violent seas was simply too great. So, you wait for spring. Your journey begins not at a grand port, but by slowly hauling your goods, perhaps fine pottery, wine, and olive oil on heavy wagons pulled by oxen or mules through the bustling, noisy streets of Rome. You make your way south, along dusty, stone-paved roads like the famous Appian Way. These roads were marvels of engineering, the arteries of the empire, but they were not smooth highways. The ride would be bumpy, slow, and taxing. A good day's journey on foot might cover 20 miles. With a heavy cart, you'd be lucky to make 15. Along the way, you'd stop at a mansio, an official stopping place maintained by the government, or a more common capona, a roadside inn. These weren't luxury hotels. They were often crowded, dirty, and dangerous. You'd sleep in a room with several other travelers, always keeping a close eye on your purse and your goods. Robbery was a constant threat on the roads, and bands of brigands often hid in the hills and forests, waiting for weary travelers. After days, perhaps weeks, of overland travel, you finally reach a port like Puteoli. Here, the real journey begins. You find a captain of a corbita, a sturdy, round-hulled merchant ship. These ships were not built for speed or comfort. They were designed to carry cargo. You, as a passenger, would essentially be human cargo. There were no private cabins. You'd find a space on the crowded deck, surrounded by sailors, other merchants, and the pungent smell of livestock, amphorae of wine, and the sea itself. You'd bring your own food and water for the voyage, sleeping under the stars on a simple mat or cloak. The ship relies entirely on the wind. With a favorable wind, you could make good time, sailing at about 4 to 6 knots. But if the wind died, you could be stranded for days, drifting aimlessly under the hot sun. If the wind turned against you, the journey would be a grueling battle of tacking back and forth. A storm could appear with little warning, tossing the wooden ship like a toy and threatening to splinter it against hidden rocks. The fear of shipwreck was very real. Ancient literature is filled with harrowing tales of survival at sea. Your journey from Puteoli to Alexandria, a distance of over 1,000 nautical miles, would not be direct. The ship would likely hug the coastline, island hopping across the Mediterranean. You might stop in Sicily, then Crete, navigating by sight, using familiar landmarks, the sun and the stars. Ancient sailors were masters of celestial navigation, but without a compass, getting lost was a constant danger. This leg of the journey could take anywhere from 10 days with perfect winds to over a month if fortune was not on your side. Finally, after weeks at sea, you spot the legendary Pharos of Alexandria, the great lighthouse guiding you into one of the world's busiest ports. The relief would be immense. You have survived the bandits, the squalid inns, the unpredictable sea, and the storms. You have traveled over 1,500 miles from Rome. This journey, which might take a modern traveler a few hours by plane, has taken you nearly 2 months, and this was a relatively safe and common route within the mighty Roman Empire. Imagine a trader on the Silk Road. Their journey was not one of weeks, but of years. They would set out from Antioch and travel east, crossing vast, scorching deserts like the Taklamakan, which locals called the Sea of Death. They would navigate treacherous mountain passes in the Pamirs, the roof of the world, where the air is thin and the cold is biting. These travelers moved in caravans, large groups of merchants with hundreds of camels, for protection against bandits and the harsh environment. The camel, the ship of the desert, was the key to this overland trade. It could carry heavy loads and survive 4 days without water. The rhythm of the journey was dictated by the pace of these animals and the location of oases, precious islands of water and life in a sea of sand. A caravan might only cover 10 to 15 miles a day. At night, they would form a protective circle with their camels and goods, light fires, and share stories under a blanket of stars, far from any city. The dangers were immense. Sandstorms could appear out of nowhere, burying everything in their path. The extreme temperatures, from blistering heat during the day to freezing cold at night, took a heavy toll. Sickness was rampant, and a simple injury could easily become fatal so far from help. But the rewards were worth the risk. A merchant who successfully transported a camelload of Chinese silk to the Roman Empire could become fabulously wealthy. This incredible journey, covering over 4,000 miles, could take more than 2 years in one direction. Most merchants didn't even travel the whole route. Instead, goods were passed from one trader to another at great caravan cities like Samarkand or Bukhara, with the price increasing at every step. These journeys did more than just move goods. They moved ideas, cultures, and religions. As travelers shared stories in caravanserais and port cities, they exchanged knowledge of medicine, astronomy, and philosophy. Buddhism traveled from India along the Silk Road into China. Christianity spread through the Roman Empire along its roads and sea lanes. These arduous journeys stitched the ancient world together, creating a tapestry of interconnected cultures. The traveler themselves was transformed. To undertake such a journey was to be changed forever. They saw landscapes and met people they could have never imagined. They learned to be resilient, patient, and resourceful. They understood the true scale of the world in a way we, with our instant connections and fast travel, can barely comprehend. Their world was one where foreign meant something truly alien, where the next valley might hold a different language and different gods. It was a world where a letter could take months to arrive, if it arrived at all. Every mile was earned through sweat, patience, and courage. So the next time you board a plane or start your car, take a moment to think of the ancient travel. Think of the Roman merchant braving the Mediterranean on a crowded cargo ship, or the Silk Road trader leading his camels through a desert sandstorm. Their journeys were not just about getting from A to B. They were epic struggles against nature and distance. Voyages that shaped not only their own lives, but the very course of human history. Thank you for joining us on this journey back in time. If you enjoyed this exploration of the ancient world, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next adventure into the past.